Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the magnificent Monday edition of the Yard. It has been a busy few days for me. It really has been. Last time we were together, I was getting ready to go get some books. Had to distribute those books out. We've got them now. Let's see. Barnes & Noble in Starkville, Bookmart and Cafe in Starkville, of course, Campus Bookmart in Starkville, Maroon and Company in Starkville, Friendly City Books in Columbus. They're being delivered to Lemuria Books in Jackson today, Persnickety in Madison today, and then they'll be at Lorelei Books in Vicksburg very, very soon. Also going to Turnrow. It's a pretty crazy deal how rapidly we go from completely stopped to 100 miles per hour. Spent the weekend signing your books. I know many of you are eagerly anticipating the arrival of your books, and so I finished that up yesterday around 4 o'clock, wrote all day long. My penmanship may not have been the best, so please don't judge me too harshly. Ended up signing, I guess, about 3,500 books. And then we've got some more, obviously, that are unsigned that'll head out to bookstores, and I'll sign those when we get there. Let me update you on the signing schedule. These are some things coming up that all you guys need to be aware of. I know many of you are regularly asking me, Steve, when are you coming here? When are you coming there? Well, the truth of the matter is I don't really know. I know that I will get there at some point, but I don't know. I don't keep the schedule, and that's one of the greatest things for me is having somebody to keep the schedule. So this week, Wednesday, February 9th, 2:30 to 5 p.m., I'll be in Meridian at the Bulldogs shop. That's downtown, for you that are unfamiliar. Thursday, February 10th, I'll be at the Starkville Library from noon to 1, and then that evening, we'll be at the Alluvion. Sponsored by Turnrow Books in Greenwood, Mississippi. That'll be 5 to 7, kind of a happy hour experience there in the Mississippi Delta. Always have to go by there and eat at the, the Crystal Palace, the Crystal Grill. Love that place. The best pie probably in the state of Mississippi. Love going in there. This Friday, I will be at Maroon and Company from 3 to 6. Central Mississippi, we didn't forget about you. We'll be at Lemuria Books from 12 to 2 on this Saturday. 12 to 2 this Saturday. And then Persnickety, that great little gift shop there in Madison, be there 3 to 5 on Saturday. Next week, it all gets started on Thursday. February 17th at Reed's Gumtree Books there in Tupelo, 3 to 6. And then Friday, Bookmart and Cafe, that time is to be announced. Same thing for Saturday. That's just kind of going to depend on when Chris Simonis and the Diamond Dogs elect to play a little baseball. So that gets you through 2 weeks. If you'd like to set up a signing, you can reach out to me. I'll connect you with the right people. But there's a lot that goes into this, and let me go ahead and prepare you for this. We're going to sell out of books the first printing. Now, if you already ordered one online, you're taken care of. You don't need to worry about that. I know you waited a long time. I've waited a long time to get these books to you, but you're taken care of. And I went through and signed those books yesterday, and a lot of your families of your Bulldog players, current and former, have already elected to buy the book. And that's pretty special to me. It really is. And you knew they would, but still it's nice to see the DeBrule family and Stone Simmons family and Christian McLeod's family and Will Bednar's family. It's very rewarding to see that they want the book. And already got some early reviews. A lot of people are telling me it's the best thing I've ever written. I agree if I do say so myself. And I think a lot of it has to do with the subject matter itself. Not that I didn't pour my heart into every page of everything I've ever done, but we just won a national championship. And it was important to me to be able to document that. As someone who was there at nearly every game. I guess in the end I missed 4 games the entire season. We couldn't get to Arlington due to the weather. Proved to be a pretty good weekend for us. I did cancel my Flow Sports subscription shortly thereafter. And then didn't make it out to College of Charleston, but I did make it to South Carolina that weekend. So I've only missed 4 games. I'll miss a few more this year due to the book signing schedule. And I hate that because I hate not being there. But Won't be making the trip to Oxford or to Columbia, Missouri, but I should be able to make everything else. That's the plan anyway. Home or away, midweek, weekend, I try to make it all. I like to be your eyes and ears out there to kind of tell you what's being said, and they do a great job too to give us some incentive to come to the ball games. Like we don't, they don't do a Zoom call for baseball at Mississippi State. I know a lot of other people that they have found it maybe perhaps their way of doing things to kind of reward the media that doesn't make the trip. But what's the point in me making the trip and then everybody else getting the opportunity to ask questions and go through a press conference from the comfort of their own home? So I like being there. There's nothing like being there. And I encourage you, when you have the opportunity to go see the Mississippi State athletics programs when they come to your neck of the woods, please go out and support the team. Not only is it a great experience for you and your kids, but our student athletes deserve to have some people cheering on their efforts. Now, while I can't cheer in the press box, in my heart I'm cheering. I always want us to win. I always expect us to win. But in many respects, I feel that this book is a big win for all of us. It's a big win for me, obviously, because I put a lot of time and effort into it. But, years from now, we're going to want to go back and relive all this stuff, and it's going to be nice for you guys to be able to, of course, put the DVR on. But, the reality of it is you don't get the insight from the players and the coaches. And a lot of people have asked me, what was your favorite interview? What's your favorite part of the book? Well, it's all my favorite because it all meant something. And the thing that I go back to is that every player contributed. And that's what it takes to win a national championship. You have to have contributions from every player on your roster. Whether that be a guy like Preston Johnson, really hammering things down in Game 2 against Vanderbilt to save our bullpen for the national championship final. That was huge for Mississippi State. What it boils down to Tanner Leggett, a guy that, the book on him was he couldn't hit sliders. But lo and behold, what does he get? He gets a slider and drives Braylon Skinner in from second to advance Mississippi State to the national championship final. So I got as many quotes as I could possibly get. Saved every interview throughout the year. So you got the words from the coaches and players basically as things began to unfold during your national championship season. If you hadn't ordered books, you can at dogpiletobook.com. It's no longer a pre-order. You order it now, they'll go ahead and get it in the mail for you. Matter of fact, some people yesterday, as I was finishing up signing all the pre-orders, we had some orders come through, and those were signed too. And so those will head to the post office today if they haven't already. All of the singles will go out today and just about all the multiples. And then the remaining, when I say multiples, there are some people that bought, 5, 6, 7 books. Those will all go out this week too. And if they don't go out today, they'll go out tomorrow. And so be looking for those. And I left them, several hundred signed books at the publisher. So if you require personalization, give it a couple more days. They're going to see me at these book signings. Of course, like if you order today and you want a personalization for your grandfather or something like that, we can knock that out probably on Wednesday. Of course, we'll get it in the mail Thursday. But just have a little patience. Every year we go through this with these books where we get them in the mail, and sometimes we're at the mercy of the United States Postal Service. And if you guys have had to deal with that in the last couple of years, at times things don't flow as well as they should. But we have done our part. The books have all been received. The books have all been signed. The books have all been packaged. All your mailing labels have been printed. Many of you should have got a notification by now that your order is complete. And so it's in the mail. So the check, the book, in the mail. Excited for you guys to have it. And, sales have been, shall we say, robust through the first couple of days of release. And, I expect the book to probably debut on the bestseller list this coming Sunday, probably middle of the pack. And then in week 2, I expect to see it go to number 1 and stay there for a while. And there's just a lot of interest in the book, and not everybody that retails the book for us is part of that process for the Mississippi bestsellers list. But there are many people that are, and I appreciate our independent bookstores in Mississippi. We have a very rich literary heritage in the Magnolia State, and a lot of that is supported by your independent bookstores. I'm a local author in many respects, but I have a lot of friends that don't have the same following or notoriety that I do that depend on those independent bookstores to help them get their books on the shelves. And our people in Mississippi do a great job of doing that. And I know meeting so many of these people out running around doing book signings, how difficult that can be recently talked to another Mississippi writer that is, basically got her books up for consignment, at stores, just trying to kind of get, her foot in the door as a new author. And I think it's important too that, we shop and support local. There are a lot of people out there that want children's books and that sort of stuff, and we have some very talented, children's authors in the state of Mississippi. And so I think, again, it's important. I think shop Mississippi first. I'm a firm believer in that. I try to shop local wherever I go, even when I'm on the road. If I go to Arkansas and I'll ask the student workers up there, hey, if I want to go get tacos when this thing is over, where should I go? And don't tell me Taco Bell. Nothing against running for the border, but when I'm on the road, I like to eat well. Probably well, a little bit better than I should at times. But the reality of it is I like to support independent business, and I hope that you do as well. There are so many people out there that are doing a great job. They don't have the resources, the backing of a big parent company to support them, and so they depend on people like me and you. Which reminds me, in the months ahead, I'm going to share a story with you. I have a label mate, I guess you would say, a gentleman, a former professor emeritus at Mississippi State that recently just passed away, that wrote a book about turkey hunting and about naturalism and about living outdoors and things like that, and it's kind of our great state. And so that book's going to be released in April, and since he's passed away, I want to do what I can to help his family sell those books. I understand they've got about 1,000 to sell, and so we want to do what we can to kind of promote that. So many of you may have even been students of this professor, and so I'll have more information as we kind of move forward with that. And we're actually going to sell it on my website, the website that supports my literary contributions. My literary agent said, hey, how do you feel about doing this? And we're absolutely supportive of doing that. And so it'll make it easier for you. So if you're looking for that book, that turkey hunting book, you'll be able to find it at dogpiletobook.com. So we'll make it easy for you as best we can. Got a great show lined up for you today. A lot of men's basketball stuff to talk about. Got some baseball stuff to talk about too. I can't wait. We're 11 days away. 11 days away from opening day for the defending national champion Mississippi State Bulldogs. Got some things to share about that today. We'll kind of look ahead. And, we're right in the middle of the crazy part of college basketball season. And, we dropped a game over the weekend that we had hoped to win, didn't expect to win, but we certainly hoped to win and had an opportunity to win, but we did, and we'll talk about that. Again, my belief in this Mississippi State men's basketball team is unwavering. I believe we have the talent to make the NCAA tournament. I am still holding on to hope that we're going to win a game or two we're not expected to, and that we're going to win the games that we are expected to, and that we'll make a push to make the NCAA tournament. But at this point, every game that Ben Howland and the Mississippi State men's basketball team plays in is an important game. There are no games of no consequence left on this schedule. And so we're going to break some of that down today and kind of look ahead. This is a season-defining stretch that we're in now. And some of the games that we looked at early in the season that we said, that's going to be a really tough one. Now over the course of the season, we look, hey, we got a chance to go in there and win one. And so we have not been a good road team, as our record reflects. We're going to have to win some games on the road, I think, to make the NCAA tournament. I think that is probably the most understood fact about our season is we're going to have to improve our play on the road in order to get off the bubble and get into the NCAA tournament field. Let's thank our good friends at Bulldog Burger Company. Had lunch there last week. Probably get in there again this week. And what's interesting, I had somebody reach out to me and say, hey, Steve, I don't know if you know this. There's a Bulldog Burger Company and now in the Ridgeland Flowood area. And you're absolutely right, there is. And I did know that. I did know that. I did. There are 3 great locations to serve you. The first one right here, the flagship, University Drive in Stark Vegas, and then Gloucester Street there in Tupelo. And yes, a new one in central Mississippi in the Lakeland Drive, Flowood area. You can get out there and go check that thing out. You'll be glad you did. Our buddy Ian Few running the show down there. Have the spring rolls. They'll make you and everybody around you better looking. It's a great restaurant quality hamburger. It's one of the great delicacies in life. As a matter of fact, Stan DeMann, when I was signing books on Saturday, Stan DeMann at Campus Bookmark, he treated the entire crew at Bulldog Burger Company, and I got the Bulldog. And you know what? It was fantastic. It always is. That's the thing. Consistency is key in the restaurant business, and that's what you're going to get. Great food at a great price, great portions, great service, great locations. Whether it be a night out with the guys or the girls or with the family, Bulldog Burger Company is, without a doubt, your best destination to go enjoy a great restaurant quality hamburger, but also, too, those fabulous spring rolls. And if you're looking to eat a little bit lighter, you can do that, too. You can have the Sloppy Joe sliders, and that's probably not maybe on your cheat day menu. Maybe it's not part of your diet, but you can get the BLT salad, fried or grilled there. And I actually said it right this time. I like to get it grilled. To me, it just tastes a little bit better. And you can go check it out. The portion's absolutely substantial. You'll get more than your money's worth at Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. MEAT. And it seems like forever and a day ago that we were together because so much has happened. Mississippi State played an intercollegiate basketball game at Bud Walton Arena on Saturday evening in front of 19,200 people. My son and his family were in attendance. Matter of fact, today's top 10 list is the suggestion of my oldest son, Ani. And maybe a band you're unfamiliar with. Roy even says, hey, this is a new one on me. And that's part of the goodness of the show, is to be able to give you some things that maybe perhaps you're unfamiliar with. We celebrate the classics, but we still push perhaps the obscure. All right, so we get into this ballgame, and this was an offensive masterpiece, right? No, it absolutely was not. But there was a defensive clinic, and one of the things that kind of helped, too, is, we forced Arkansas into some difficult shots in the early going. And even when they made that little run, as an 8-0 run, it kind of gave them an advantage. You kind of felt like, we may be in trouble here. And the crowd begins to get rolling. They hit a big shot here or there. We couldn't execute offensively. And then the next thing you know, we end on a pretty good run. And it's a 25-25 game at the half. And I remember sitting there thinking, hey, as ugly as this thing has been, we're right there. We have traditionally been a much better team in the second half after some halftime adjustments. And I said, you know what, hey, we're right there on the road in a tie game against Arkansas, a team that's really talented, really athletic. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think they're better than us. And we split with them. They didn't have J.D. Note the first time we played them, but I didn't think that he had the impact on this game that maybe many people expected. And maybe I'm a bit naive, but I really felt like at the half we got a real chance here. Tolu Smith did play in the ball game. We talked about on Friday I wasn't expecting him to play. He wasn't 100%, but I thought he moved around pretty well out there, especially low in the post. I thought he did a good job moving his feet. I thought he was confident in what he did. And getting him back, getting him healthy is key to our season. I think we all know that. You don't need me to tell you that. We all feel the same way. We are a much better team with a healthy Tolu Smith on the floor. And fortunately, we just haven't had him a whole lot this year. And maybe that leads to him coming back next year. I don't know. He probably needs, a big run down the stretch to kind of elevate his stock and, pro draft circles. But the reality of it is that, when we have Tolu Smith, we are a difficult team to contend with. Looking at some numbers here, too. Iverson Molinar, again, continues his spectacular play. 19 points for him. We had him shoot it a lot, and some of those shots, too, didn't fall, especially in the first half. It just felt like, that they were doing a good job kind of being physical with him and forcing him to jack up some shots that perhaps weren't maybe the best shot selection. But, I didn't think that we got a lot of contact called in this ballgame. Now, there were times it was kind of herky-jerky. There was some contact in the lane at times on Iverson that didn't get called. But on the flip side, too, there were some times that I thought we got away with some things in the paint on the defensive end. But sometimes, they call it, and next time they don't. And that's the only thing you can really ask for is that there's some consistency. But I didn't think it was a poorly officiated game. I know a lot of you did. It's like we get down there and we get in with the trees and we don't score and we think there's got to be contact. But I'm a guy that's probably maybe as open about criticizing officials as anybody. And I think sometimes what our conference trots out there is a complete joke, especially on the football side of things. And there are some guys on the baseball side of things that probably should have been retired, 4 or 5 years ago. But I thought this was a pretty well officiated game. And what I mean by that is, it's not to say that they didn't miss some calls. I thought it was pretty consistent on both ends. I don't think that they were able to play physical and we weren't. I thought both teams were. I think this, in the end, we couldn't execute shots down the stretch. But Iverson, 7 of 18 from the floor. You generally see him shoot at a much higher clip than that. And we want him shooting the ball a lot. He's probably a guy that needs to take double-digit shots per game. Missed his only 3, but he's 5 of 5 from the line, and that's, again, part of his game. Try to get to the rim, and even if you can't finish, you get to the line. And with them kind of sitting on their whistles a little bit, we didn't get to the line probably as much as we expected to. Iverson just one board and had 3 turnovers and then 1 assist. And again, in order for this half-court offense to work, we're going to have to play some team basketball. And I thought offensively we really struggled at times. Iverson, 19 points on the night. Got a good night from Garrison Brooks, too. We talked about that, how he kind of disappeared a little bit against Texas Tech. Against South Carolina, an outstanding game. And another good game for him again against Arkansas. 34 minutes of action, and he gets a double-double. 11 rebounds, 12 points. That's a stat line that we can live with. If you're going to get a double-double from that guy, more games than not, you're going to win a lot of basketball games, especially when Tolu Smith's in the lineup. And Tolu didn't play the full complement of minutes that many of the other starters did, but 27 minutes, 2 of 8 from the field. And there were a couple times I thought he was just kind of feeling his way through, but very good at the line. 7 of 9, one of his better nights from the free throw line. He's about, a 64% free throw shooter. We get 7 of 9 for him. Chances are we're going to be in good shape. Just 6 boards from him, 11 points. But I think at this point, how can you be critical? You're just happy to see the guy back. He had that sublex patella 2 weeks ago. Misses 3 games, and now he's back. And in order for us to make the tournament, I think we're going to have him. I thought DJ Jeffries showed good energy. He's not a great three-point shooter, and some of those are kind of ill-advised attempts. He's just 1 of 4 from the field and missed both of his threes. There are sometimes it's almost like we're playing horse. It's like if we shoot it in rhythm, we make it. And he banged one in that they originally called a 3 and went back and looked at it and called it a 2, and that's the only shot that he made. There are times, though, his shot selection is just not very good, and that's something that's probably got to improve tremendously down the stretch. Still waiting for the big breakout game from DJ Jeffries. He's doing a pretty good job defensively. His length is a problem for some on the defensive end, but we need a little more of an offensive contribution from him. He pulls down 6 boards, knocks down 3 or 4 free throws, and actually had 3 assists. And when your 3 is getting more assists than your point guard, that's not a good thing. Matter of fact, Tolu Smith also had 3 assists in the game, and a couple of those were just great looks. That extra pass down low when he gets the double team and he dishes it to Garrison Brooks, who had a couple of nice heaves. And again, I think Garrison's rounding into kind of what we need him to be. 5 points for DJ Jeffries. Does have the 1 steal. Shaquille Moore has kind of gone away as of late. He'd got a stretch there where he was outstanding. He was a great complimentary scorer in the backcourt. And I don't know if it's because we're not running the same sets for him because, with Tolu and those guys down low, maybe we're trying to get more of the point-blank shots. But Shaquille, just 4 attempts on the night and 21 minutes of action, missed both of his threes, pulled down a couple rebounds, also got in a little bit of foul trouble, and just 2 points on the night. You would say, well, Steve, you're not going to get 4 double-digit scores, and you're right about that. But I do think that DJ and Shaquille are going to have to put out a little more on the offensive end in order for us to win some of these games that we're going to have to make the tournament. So, your 3 double-digit scorers are Molinar, Brooks, and Tolu Smith, and you can live with that most nights, but I don't think that you can go, 5 points and 2 points from the other 2 starters. Anderson Garcia is a guy that is quickly becoming a fan favorite, brings a lot of energy off the bench. 14 minutes for him, just, 1 basket, and it was a big 3, and it was big at the time, too. It's like when Arkansas was trying to get the crowd into it, all of a sudden Garcia rams home a 3, pulls down a couple rebounds. Very active on the defensive end. I'm happy with what we're getting from him, and I think you guys are as well. And you'd like to see him get a little bit more. Rocket Watts has been hot for us. He didn't do as much against Arkansas, just 6 minutes of action. Had the 1 foul, too, where they went and reviewed it. And I was surprised it wasn't a flagrant 1. To be honest with you, he's coming down and he inadvertently hits a guy in the face, and then he kind of shoves in his direction. As sensitive as officiating it's been, I was kind of surprised that one didn't go their way. Xavien Davis, 11 minutes of action. And again, I think we're getting what we want from him in that role is kind of the third big. I think he's a guy that's willing to get in there and compete. I do think defensively he has played pretty well. Just 3 points for him. Does knock down 1 basket and 1 of 2 from the free throw line. And again, Cam Matthews, again, probably our best on-the-ball defender, not going to fill up the box score. No points for him, attempted just 2 shots. One of those was point-blank range. You got to make that happen. And the other one was probably an ill-advised 3. Pulled down a couple rebounds. Not a great game for Cam, but again, a lot of times when he's playing well, you're not going to see it show up in the stat line. But again, pretty balanced effort. We just weren't good enough, to finish this deal late. 16 of 22 from the line. You probably feel pretty good about that. 3 of 12 from the three-point line. We're just not going to make many shots from 3. Garrison Brooks has 2 of them. We're just not a team. We're not an offense that really has an outside threat consistently. We just don't have that guy, and that's disappointing. It really is. And that was the thing, when you had DJ last year, you just never knew when DJ was going to be able to knock down a 3, and it always seemed to be at a big moment. We don't really have that guy. That's a part of Iverson's game. It's probably got to get better too, in order for the scouts to really, put a grade on him that I think will make him a significant amount of money. He's got to get better from the perimeter. We're just not a perimeter-oriented offense. We pulled down 38 rebounds as a team, which is right there with Arkansas. They had 39. So we kind of held our own in that respect, and I think that's what Tolu Smith does for you. He's a great equalizer on the glass. JT Notte, we held him below his average, but he had some big baskets late. He was 0 of 6 from 3. So we did a pretty good job defending the perimeter as a team. Arkansas, 4 of 19 from 3. And, that's kind of been the Achilles heel of the Ben Howland experience, is that teams that can hit from outside traditionally give us a lot of trouble. Well, we did a good job defending the perimeter this time. And most of these shots are very contested. Chris Likes made a couple, and a couple of those were just, great ball movement where we just didn't rotate over. But again, that wasn't the difference in the ball game. And then, free throws, they're only 13 of 22. I just thought down the stretch, we didn't execute well enough offensively, and that proved to be the difference in the ball game. We shoot 35%, they shoot 37, nearly 38. We talk about three-point shooting not really a factor for either team. And then we shot 72% from the free throw line. They just 59%. Looking at the intangibles in this ball game, 24 in the paint, points in the paint for us, 32 for them. There's your 8 points. Points off turnovers, we have 8. We have 7, they have 8. Second chance points, we have 10, they have 15. Fast break, they have 18, we have 8. That's a factor too. Arkansas is going to get out and run. We did a pretty good job at times getting back in transition defense, but when they made their big run, they got us. There was one time too, if I recall, I'm trying to remember who missed the 3. It may have been Garrison Brooks who missed the 3, and then it turns into basically an uncontested dunk at the other end, basically a 5-point swing. That's the thing. When you miss the shot, you can't sit there and lament the loss. You got to get back on defense because Arkansas is a team that will make you pay. And, of course, they beat us up on the bench 23-6. The game was tied 10 times. Lead changed 1 time. And Arkansas, really from around the 10-minute mark in the first half, it seemed like, I would never say they felt like they were in control, but it never felt like they were in trouble, if that makes any sense. But again, an effort, a good effort that comes up short. I still believe we can make the tournament, and I still expect to make the tournament, and maybe that's wishful thinking on my part. But I do believe this is a team that is very capable, when they're healthy, of beating nearly anybody. The Texas Tech thing, I think, exposed a little bit, some size matchups that perhaps don't favor us. And to be honest with you, I think Texas Tech right now, if I had to call it, probably the best team we played all year, and that includes Kentucky. I think Texas Tech is really, really good. So we're going to preview the Tennessee matchup here a little bit later. That is going to be a February 9th, 8 p.m. tip, startable time, and that's going to be on ESPN2. And that's a game, too. We start looking at these games on the schedule and start thinking, hey, Steve, we got to win one of these games we're not expected to. That's one of them. And we'll talk about that one on Wednesday's show kind of in depth to kind of break those guys down. But let's take a quick look at what is left. Tennessee at our place, I'm almost at the point where I consider it a must-win because we have been so dreadful on the road. We have to win that game because we're going to go to Baton Rouge and Alabama back-to-back games after that. And if the chalk holds, you lose the Tennessee game, and you don't pick up a road win, that's 4 consecutive losses, which really removes any possibility of us making the NCAA tournament unless we win the SEC tournament. So this is that defining stretch in the season. So we've got to find a way to get that dub against Tennessee. And, of course, LSU not playing really good basketball as of late either. And so you look at that LSU team and think, okay, we could win that one. Alabama has been, kind of schizophrenic as of late, too. You never know which Alabama team is going to show up. We have not played well in Tuscaloosa during the Ben Howland era. But every one of these games you look at and you say, you know what, hey, if we go out there and play to our potential, we could win all 3 of these games. You win all 3 of these games, let's say you win 2 of these 3 games. All of a sudden you start feeling a whole lot better about your opportunities in the postseason. But it all starts with Tennessee. Because if we lose a Tennessee game, then you're looking at a stretch where basically you go, 1-3 during that defining stretch, potentially. So we got to find a way to win a couple ball games here, and we got to prove it. Ben Howland said as much. We've got to prove that we're a tournament team. I think we've proven that we're in contention, but we've got to kind of remove all doubt about this team, and you're only going to be able to do that on the floor. Doesn't matter how much you say it, I say it, or what anybody else says or does. The bottom line is, Mississippi State's got to go win some basketball games. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And then, of course, after this defining stretch, you get to home and home with Missouri. We go to South Carolina. Vanderbilt comes here. Auburn comes here. And then we go to A&M, and A&M is not playing well either. And so that looked like a really difficult ball game here a couple weeks ago. Now all of a sudden you start thinking, hey, that's at best, a toss-up for them. But we have got to prove that we can go into somebody else's gym and put on a dark color jersey and win a ball game. That's the thing. When I look at this, the road to the NCAA tournament for us is going to come on the road. You start counting these things down. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 remaining road games. There's no way you can lose all 5 of those road games and make a tournament. I'm just putting that out there for anybody that wants to pay attention. You lose those 5 road games, it's going to be very, very difficult. Very, very difficult to finish above 500 in this league, and I don't think that's going to be good enough. I don't think going 8-10 in this league is going to get you in a tournament. It's just not. All right, let's talk to our friend Close with Blair. Let's talk about him. We're not going to have him on the show as much as he would like to be on the show. We're not going to do that. Many of you have thought, hey, Steve, I've always wanted to buy a house. I don't know how to go about it. I'd love to do it. And maybe I don't want to go down to my local bank and have them see my credit report and that sort of stuff, and I don't want to give them my business or whatever, for whatever reason. Talk to somebody outside your circle. Talk to my guy, Blair Chandler, from closewithblair.com. It's CLOSE with Blair.com. Blair is an outstanding individual doing a great job in the mortgage industry. It pays to have a friend when you have to navigate through something difficult like getting a mortgage. And, here's the deal, too. Maybe you're a person that's a little bit overextended at this time. Maybe you've got racked up some credit card debt. Maybe you want to do some home improvements. Get your equity working for you. Let Blair help you. Refinance your mortgage. Maybe you want to change the term. Maybe you want to get some cash out. Maybe you want to put it in a pool. Maybe you want to do all sorts of things. Maybe you got a wedding to pay for. I don't know. Visit him at closewithblair.com. I'm going to give you his phone number, too. Because here's the deal. Blair's one of us. He's one of you. He's a boneyarder. His phone number is 601-500-2344. Again, that's 601-500-2344. And if you mention to him you heard about him on the Boneyard, whether you do it by email or by text or by phone, he's going to pay for your appraisal. That's about a $500 to $600 value. How cool is that? That's how bad he wants your business. There are a lot of people out there that would love to be able to review your application. But are they going to pay for your appraisal? You get the Ken Folks discount with closewithblair.com. Okay, let's get into today's top 10 list. Now, here's the deal. This is a great band that didn't get great support from their record company. But if you were a Sirius XM Octane listener, in the early 2000s, you probably heard this band a lot. I absolutely love this band, though I think their first 2 albums are flawless, especially the second one, Duality. I don't think there's a bad track on that album. I'm talking about the band Ra, R-A, Ra. And so Ani reached out to me last week, my oldest son, and said, hey, have you done a top 10 Ra? Well, I hadn't. And I hadn't really considered these guys, but there was a time that was kind of the soundtrack of my life. I absolutely love these guys. I think Sahai's, the vocalist, is one of the best vocalists in modern rock. I mean, he's not on a level of Brent Smith or Miles Kennedy, but he is outstanding. And used to date Cameron Diaz. How about that? That's pretty cool, right? A little trivia on that. So here's another thing, too, about this band, too. The bass player in Ra is also the bass player in Trickster. Yeah, that's right. Give It To Me Good. Yeah, those guys. So PJ Farley doing double duty. And what happens in Ra is unlike anything that you hear in Trickster. The guy's a great bass player, shows a lot of versatility. So this is your Ra top 10 list. Now, I'm giving you a gift here. If you are unfamiliar with this band and you like modern rock, this is going to be a band you're going to really dig. Great vocals, very layered sound, not too industrial, but these guys can really play. And the fact that they didn't get better support from Universal is really a joke. And I know when they changed A&R guys, I guess, and one of the executives at Universal had listened to the Duality album. He goes, I think we're making a huge mistake by not promoting these guys more. Well, they didn't. This is one of those hidden gems. Ra. Here is your honorable mentions. Tell Me, Awake, Rectifier, and they do a wonderful rendition of the Police song, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. You weren't expecting to hear that today. Probably should be on one of our great cover lists. But there you go. Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. That's on the Duality album, which I think is the best album. But here are the top 10 Ra songs. From the Critical Mass album, It's All Over Now. And that's an album that I'm not quite as well versed in. I've kind of just listened to the hits on that one. It's a cool album, but it's not one that I have listened to extensively. But I do like that track, It's All Over Now. Number 9, an incredible ballad, and this is where I think we really see the songwriting ability and this wonderful vocal range of Sahaj. It's Swimming Upstream, and it's basically about, it's a song of unrequited love. It's like there's this guy and this girl, and they get along great, and he loves her, and she doesn't love him, and thus the title of the song is, I'm swimming upstream for you. All right, number 8, and this has a great guest spot on it from the newest album from last year, Intercorrupted. It's Nobody Loves You, featuring LaJohn Witherspoon from Seven Dust. You guys are familiar with that guy, one of the coolest guys in all rock and roll. Had a chance to meet LaJohn in Rocklahoma. Guy's outstanding. He goes, hey, man, just call me LJ. So LJ does a great job on this one. And again, it's Nobody Loves You. That's the newest album. So if you're familiar with the earlier albums in the catalog, and maybe perhaps this got lost in the shuffle because they're with a different record company now, it's worth listening to. Number 7, there were times this was my favorite Ra song. There are times at different, like when my dad was really sick, I used to listen to this song a lot. And it's a song called Superman. And, the chorus basically is life is hard, but so is everything. But it's one of those songs, too. It's kind of got a healing aspect to it. I really dig it. It's number 7, Superman. Number 6, off the album From One, the debut album from Ra. This is a ballad that was not released as a single. There weren't many singles released because the record company didn't want to put any money behind this very talented band. But it's a song called Walking and Thinking. And again, it's another one of these lover's lament type songs, but it is an absolutely beautiful song. It is absolutely beautiful. The instrumentation is near perfect. The vocal delivery is top shelf. The lyrical content is remarkable. I really believe if this song had been released as a single on modern rock radio, then it would have been a hit. I think it would certainly have been a top 10 hit. It's Walking and Thinking, your number 6 song. Number 5, and this is one of Ani's favorite Ra songs, off the Black Sun album, it's Don't Turn Away. And again, I think they had evolved a lot. This is, again, they'd moved on from Universal, and I think they had a little more freedom with the new record company. Actually released this under their own label with the backing of another company. But Don't Turn Away was a mainstay on the Sirius XM Octane Biggins Countdown. If you're familiar with that. That's the top 10 songs in modern rock each week as voted on by the listeners of Octane, the Octane Air Force, if you're unfamiliar with that. Don't Turn Away, a great, great track, number 5. All right, number 4, this is another one that I believe would have been a huge hit on modern rock radio. It had been released. This is one of those songs that when I put on, I got to make sure the cruise is set, because if I don't, I'm going to end up speeding. I love the changes in this one. There are some songs that are just kind of 2s and 4s, and you find a great rhythm, and the bass player just finds a pocket. Next thing you know, it's a really cool vibe. This is one of those songs where you kind of go on a bit of a ride. And I love when they kind of come out of the refrain and they kind of blow up the vocal a little bit. The harmonies on this are great, but it's the only one, number 4, I don't want to be the only one, number 4. Now, I suspect those of us that are Ra fans, and I know many of you are not now, but you will be if you listen to this list, these are the top 3 songs. And I think you could probably get into an argument over which ones are the top songs, but I think we would all agree after you listen to this list, hey, those are the best 3. We may disagree on the order. Number 3, if I ever put a band back together, I would love to cover the song. I just don't know if we could do it because it is so technically proficient. The song Broken Hearted Soul is number 3 on your list. It starts out with this beautiful flamenco acoustic piece that is just absolutely next level. And then as he finishes that, next thing you know, you hear the guitar fading in, the electric guitar fading in, and then that percussion kicks in, and it is phenomenal. The vocal on it is great, and that's, Sahaj is very, very consistent. But Broken Hearted Soul is just one of these ones that if you don't know this band and you don't know this song, you owe it to yourself to listen to this one. Broken Hearted Soul, number 3 off the Black Sun album. Number 2, the debut single, the one that really started it all for them, it's got a long introduction, and it's kind of got a Middle Eastern vibe in it. Like there is some instrumentation in it that maybe is not typically associated with rock music. But there is just kind of a unique vibe to it. And it's Do You Call My Name? And I love the part in the beginning. I used to mess with him. Like we'd be traveling or whatever. There's a part and he says, kill me with the beat. He whispers it in, kill me with the beat. I would do it off beat just to get his goat. He would look at me, you're always early on that. And sometimes I really was early. But once I found out that it irritated him, I did it even more. But Do You Call My Name, number 2, and that's really the debut single. It really got started for them out of Boston. But even before they were signed as a band, it was released as a limited EP, and the song took off. And next thing you know, record companies got involved and signed these guys. But that was the one that kind of made it all happen. It's Do You Call My Name off the album From One. Number 1 for me, and there is a great, 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 great introduction to this on the album. That's one of the things about modern rock that I wish there was more of is that was a cool thing back in the 80s, and I know I'm from the 1900s, so you have to forgive me. We would have these great intros, and then you'd have the radio edit, and you'd have the album edit, and so the radio edit would be shorter, but when you got the album, you had these wonderful intros that kind of were part of the song, and that's how the album duality starts. The very beginning is kind of a spoken word deal with some really eerie music behind it called Fear. It's narrated by Peter Strauss. And then it kicks into this great song called Fallen Angels. And I think this song might be the best song many of you have never heard of. Fallen Angels by Ra. I think it is just, it's one of those deals we talk about. You have defining songs in people's catalogs. You say, yeah, this is the song. When I hear this song, it makes me want to listen to more. And as I hit the play button on the phone, I think that if you listen to Fallen Angels, you're going to say, hey, you know what, Steve was right about these guys. These guys are legit. I need to learn more. But it's Fallen Angels by Ra. I had a lot of fun putting this list together. I listened to a lot of Ra the last couple of days when I was traveling. And it reminds me of how much I love this catalog. There's just that album duality from start to finish is just fabulous. It is absolutely fabulous. And there's so many bands out there that have the sophomore slump. And From One is really, really good. It's really, really good. But they took a big jump in album 2 with duality. And it's amazing to me to read this stuff about how the record company didn't really believe in the album and didn't support it. And I think once you listen to it, you're going to be like, you know what? These guys are idiots. These guys can really rock. How can a record company not financially support this band? But unfortunately, that's happened to a lot of bands in the modern rock era. There are just a lot of companies out there that aren't willing to invest in rock and roll. And so it's up to people like me and you to keep that alive. So there you go, your top 10 Ra songs brought to you by the fine folks at closewithblair.com. Let's get into some college baseball. This segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmark. Standing man, Miss Kathy Brown, lovely, talented Susie, everybody down there will take care of you. Our good friend Cheyenne is leaving the crew, headed to New York City. That's right, if I can say it like the Pace Picante people. New York City! Yep, she's going up there to work for a little while. She has graduated, And when she's also graduated from Campus Bookmart, even though she's still going to handle some social media stuff for them. So we'll still have some interaction with her, but wish her the absolute best. And that's the thing, too. Most of the people that work at Campus Bookmart work there for a while because it's a family atmosphere. And they're doing a great job taking care of the bigger family, which is the Mississippi State family, the maroon and white family. If you're looking for the latest in Mississippi State merch, you can find it in their store. Or if you can't make it to town, perhaps you live out of state and they don't carry Mississippi State merch in your neck of the woods, shop local. Visit campusbookmart.net, and by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that'll get you free shipping on all orders over $50. Any order less than $50, absolutely incomplete. You're cheating yourself. Be sure and order those M over S hoodies. I was in there last week and picked up a couple shirts too. Even got the kid a NAFL Championship hoodie. They still have some NAFL Championship merch. Be sure and swing by there or order online. We're going to be celebrating that NAFL Championship the rest of our lives, so you probably need some fresh championship gear. You may have already worn your other stuff out. Maybe you only got T-shirts because it was the summertime. Go ahead and outfit yourself for early college baseball season with that M over S hoodie or perhaps some NAFL Championship merch. Again, that's campusbookmart.net, promo code BSR. All right, so let's talk some baseball stuff. I love being around baseball. And I'll be honest with you guys, as much as I love covering recruiting and as much as I love going football stuff, like if somebody came to me one day and said, hey, Steve, we just need you to cover Mississippi State baseball year-round, I'd be like, cool, all right, fine, let's do it. I'd miss the excitement of signing day. I'd miss the crystal balls and the predictions. And as bad as it all gets sometimes, when we get blindsided by something, I hate it, but there's a part of me, too, I kind of love it because I respect it, because it makes it, when you get it right, mean that much more because it is so unpredictable. But if somebody said, hey, Steve, listen, late in your career or whatever, if you just want to cover college baseball, we're all cool with that. Hey, I could do it, man. I love the vibe. I love being around the ballpark. There's so many times that I've said, if they tell me I got 24 hours to live, take me up to Dirty Noble Field one more time. Just let me go sit in the press box one more time. Wheel me around the complex one more time. It's a magical place. And I remember so many times, before I was a resident of Starkville, I'd come up here and cover a ball game, and I would dream of days like this. And I would say, I can't wait till I can cover the beat full time and be here. And there's so many nights when I walk out of Dirty Noble Field, I stop and I take it all in. I stop and I look at that beautiful patch of grass that our players get to be a part of, and that Brandon and those guys do such a great job maintaining that great playing surface. And I just think to myself, there's no place in the world I'd rather be than Dirty Noble Field. It is just a special place for me. Like people say, oh, this is my happy place. That sounds really cute, but I think, there is something even bigger than happiness. I think there is this whole feeling of belonging. And that's kind of how I feel when I go to Dirty Noble Field. I think about all the memories that we have all shared together. And it's a place where you belong. It's a place where you have spent time with your dad or your granddad or your brothers, your sisters. It's like there's so many great memories of being there that even kind of extend beyond just, quote, being happy. There's a nostalgia with all of it. There's an investment emotionally of being at that sacred ballpark and knowing that it's ours. There were times, you're going to laugh at this, there were times like when we get ready to unveil the stadium, and there's sometimes like I would make that little turn off 12 and go down College View, and I would just walk. I'd sit at that stop sign, and I would think to myself, I cannot believe this is ours. And I have so many friends that would come by for coffee or whatever, and I'd say, hey, let's go see the ballpark. Let me take you by. Let me show you around the stadium. And just go out there, and people just were so just blown away by the enormity of it all. And so I get excited about that, knowing that we're about to be able to go through that again, because there is going to come a time when we're not going to be able to do that. And the longer that I live and the older that I get, the more I appreciate these because, we always talked about, maybe next year. Well, next year finally came for us last year, and we finally got it. And so many people have said, Steve, and I even signed some books. They said, now we can all die happy. The only thing better than one NAFL championship, though, is two. And so before I go, I'd like to get another one, But even if we don't, there is just something special about the baseball experience at Mississippi State. And if you're not a part of that, it's difficult to explain. Like, it's difficult to make an outsider understand that there is just a camaraderie and an esprit de corps among our fans at Duty Noble Field. It is the place we come together to lose ourselves and find ourselves at the same time. And it's like, I talk about LSU a lot because in many respects they're a program that I kind of aspire to be. They had their great run with Skip Burtman, and we had a huge head start on them, and they passed us and put up, 5 national championships with Skip. And it's like you begin to ask yourself, it's like, how did this not happen? How did this not happen for us? What's finally happened, I had so many people in college baseball, especially in the media, that talked about how it was so big for Mississippi State to win the national championship, not just for Mississippi State, but for the game of college baseball. It's like you look at what Mississippi State has invested in baseball. You look at what Mississippi State has invested in facilities, what they've done in salaries. And for us not to get the payoff, it gave other athletic directors around the country an excuse and say, I don't know if we want to, submit a budget with more money allocated for baseball. Look at Mississippi State. They're spending as much as anybody in the country, and they can't win the big one. And so now we've shown that we can win the ultimate reward. And so I think it's not only good for us, it's good for the game of college baseball. And sure, it might make it a little more competitive, but at the end of the day, and I wrote about this in Dogpile, and I discussed this on Bo Bound Show, Mississippi State has always been ahead of the curve when it's come to college baseball. There were some times we kind of got big for our britches and maybe got a little bit complacent. But the reality of it is we have always made watching baseball at Duty Noble Field an experience, unlike any other in all of college baseball. And a lot of that's you. But a lot of that's the university. A lot of it's tradition and culture. I go back to something I wrote about in the book too, about Dutch McCool. Many of you know Dutch McCool from the fact that he gave the seed money to build McCool Hall and named it after his parents. It's not named after him. You maybe didn't know that, but it's true. Dutch was a guy here, and he was a former teammate of Paul Gregory, and he gave us some money for lights, and it changed everything. It absolutely changed everything. Because back in those days, college baseball was an afternoon game. It was an afternoon matinee. The students would come out after class and go out there and cheer for their classmates. But it was difficult for the working man and woman in Starkville, and there wasn't a lot of working women back then. It's a different day and time. But it was difficult for them to get to the ball games. Well, then Dutch McCool and Coach Gregory put the lights up. Well, now all of a sudden, it became an event. It wasn't just, hey, the boys are playing. It's like now, okay, I can go be a part of this. And the crowds begin to grow. And this love affair between this community and Mississippi State baseball really took hold and took a different level. And so when I think about other things that have happened, I go back and think about Ron Polk and my interview with him and all the great things that happened during his tenure. How Polk was a big part of him and Jim Ellis creating the Baseball Radio Network. He says when he went to Georgia, he couldn't get any support to do it because everybody was carrying the Braves. And again, that shows how unique this relationship is within our state. And it was huge for branding. If you listen to college baseball on the radio in the 1970s and 80s and even into the 90s, you listen to Mississippi State. Ole Miss just had a handful of affiliates. We had everybody. Because Bulldog baseball was a brand. It was a religion in some respects. Ron Polk was the first full-time head baseball coach in Southeastern Conference history. That wasn't his decision. That was the administration's decision. It's like, hey, we're going to commit to baseball. And Polk told me, and you'll read this in Dogpile, that some of his peers, this guy had to run transportation. This guy had to run the equipment room for football. This guy had to sell insurance on the side just to be able to pay his mortgage. It's like all these things, and you think, hey, we have always been true to baseball. We built this amazing cathedral out here to kind of demonstrate our loyalty to the game of baseball. And so when I think about the fact that we're all about to gather again, and I don't know if they're going to hang a new flag up there in right center field. I don't know. They've changed the graphic. I took that picture the other day and put it on Twitter. The day of the celebration, they had the one national championship thing out there, and a lot of you didn't like it. And fortunately, it was temporary, and so now we've gone with the NAFL championship logo out there at right center, which is outstanding. And I hope we basically turn the outfield fences of Duty Noble basically into a graffiti scene because we have so many NAFL championships and conference titles and things of that nature that we want to show off and celebrate. I don't want it to be tacky, but you kind of understand my point. I don't want you to be able to go anywhere at Dirty Noble Field and not see some great accomplishment from this great baseball program. But I know this. I know that when we take Dirty Noble Field this year, when we're there and we gather up for the Long Beach State Series, it's going to feel a little different. And it is. It's going to be different. Because we don't have to wonder if this is the year. Because we've already done it. And now we're thinking, hey, let's go get another one. And we can. We absolutely can. There's still a couple position battles that are up to, R.J. Yeager is likely going to be your starting second baseman. I mean, he has had a really, really good preseason. That's transfer in. You say, oh, Steve, I don't know the guy well. Well, he's probably going to be a double-digit home run guy, right? Davis Mesh out there competing too. He'll be a guy that'll play some too. And you know how Chris is. Chris plays a lot of guys, gets guys reps midweek. But I expect it to be R.J. Yeager. And then, of course, center field is still kind of up for grabs, too. Jess Davis and Braylon Skinner have competed. And as I mentioned on the show a few weeks back, there was a possibility of Cameron James playing center field. Well, he started in center field and won at scrimmages here a couple days ago and made a great catch at the wall. So that's a possibility, too, because here's the deal. If we're not getting great offensive production out of the center field spot, and we have some elite defenders out there, but if we're not getting great offensive production and maybe moving Cameron James out there, and that may be his future anyway, as in the outfield, and it allows you to get, Slade Alford or somebody else, another offensive stick to the plate, then you got to do it. And Lamonis is a defensive-minded coach, very much so. But you can't get so caught up in trading defense for offense. And you've got to be able to have the opportunity to defend your position, but you also got to be well balanced enough to score. I mean, I wrote that story about Luke Hancock this morning, and it reminds me too about all the moves we made last year. Luke Hancock had never played first base, and he had to learn to play in the Southeastern Conference. And we're on the road at South Carolina, and he muffed one. Wasn't the best throw, but it was good enough. Luke should have had it. He'll tell you the same, and he muffed it. Well, then the next time we hit one over to Lane Forsythe, and he's a freshman too, and an elite defender. But now all of a sudden, you've had one where you guys dropped it, and it's just human nature to think maybe I got to be a little bit too perfect with this throw, and we throw it away. Ultimately led to us losing the Sunday game, prevented us from getting a sweep there in Columbia. And now all of a sudden you talk to Luke, and it's like, hey, I've had the fall to work here. And down the stretch, he was outstanding last year. And listen, he's 5'11", maybe. He's 5'11". So he's not the big rangy Wes Ray, even Josh Hatcher type, long-limbed guy with a great catch radius that can dig balls out of there that are really off target. But, his background as a catcher, he knows how to dig balls out of the dirt. But he was outstanding for us last year. And here's the thing, too, about Luke. He's a baseball player. He's not just a catcher. He's a baseball player. We had high hopes for him the day he got here. And then he has a career year for us last year. Now he's one of the leaders on the team. But you move him to first base, and it takes Hatchie out. And listen, I love Josh, man. Josh is a great young man, and wish him the best at Kennesaw State. But he had the great year in 2020, like down the stretch. He was hitting the baseball better than he ever had here. But for some reason, he could not get on track last year. And so Lamonis has to make a difficult decision. And Hatcher is a plus defender at first base. So here's a situation where we're taking a guy that's hitting about 200 out of the lineup, and we're putting Hancock in. You remember the very first time we did it, Luke looked lost out there. But he figured it out. We had the deal last year, too. Cam James is going to be the everyday shortstop. We started him out there at short, and we made a lot of errors. Then Landon Jordan is playing third. And didn't do anything to lose the job. He's a bit of a punch-and-Judy hitter. But we moved Cam to third and insert Forsythe into the lineup at short, which made us a much better defensive team. And Cam still had some struggles at times, but down the stretch he was outstanding. People forget he was the most outstanding player of the Starkville Regional in the tournament last year. And then the defense that he played in Omaha was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. You go back and look at those Vanderbilt games and look how well he played and how comfortable he looked. And ultimately, that move cost us Landon Jordan. He left the team. And I get it. It's like, hey, I didn't do anything to lose a job. He was actually hitting pretty well. Playing pretty good defense over there, too. and now he's gone. He's transferred to South Alabama. Wish him the absolute best. Auburn harbor no ill will in my heart towards that guy, because you only get a short time in life to play sports, right? Well, then at times there you had Cam James. You had Tanner Leggett playing third and Cam in the DH spot, which kind of clogged the DH spot up. And Tanner, again, a guy that was a good defender, wasn't a great offensive player, but it had some big hits. As a matter of fact, hit a 3-run bomb in a scrimmage the other day, just yesterday. And that's the thing about having depth and having pieces. And so now all of a sudden we make Tanner kind of a utility guy. And Tanner, of course, started some at second. Scotty DeBrill had some struggles at times defensively and let a couple pop-ups drop. So we put Tanner Leggett over there, and I thought Tanner put together a really good stretch. But Cam goes back to third, and it enables you to bring a healthy Kellum Clark into the lineup at DH. Now, where would we have been in the postseason without Kellum Clark? Think about the big hits down the stretch. Now, he's got to get the average up. Right, he does. But think about the postseason that guy had and the big hits that he had. And the home run he hit against Griff McGarry to break up a no-hitter against Virginia to keep us in a winner's bracket. It's one of the biggest home runs in the history of Mississippi State baseball. This guy's an outstanding player. He hadn't had a great preseason, though, but I think he'll get it going. I'm not that worried about that. I think one of the things you're doing now, if you're his coach, is you're not grooving fastballs. You're making him hit other stuff to prepare him for the season. That's the thing about these preseason scrimmages. It's not just a home run derby contest. We're trying to get that guy out like our opponents will, trying to teach him to elevate and kind of change his approach to hitting. That's just kind of how things work. But when you begin to think about the puzzle pieces having to be shifted into place, what if we could run the season this year and not have to play musical chairs? You may go back a couple of years. You remember when Gunnar was here? We go out and we get Gunnar, and he's one of the top home run hitters in junior college, and then it doesn't really translate well here. He drops a bunch of weight when he gets here. Can't handle the middle infield. We move him to third and move Foscue from third to second. All of a sudden, you've got one of the better middle infield combos in the country. And Westberg had some times throwing the ball up and away. He did. But you ended up getting 2 first-rounders in the middle. Gunnar goes to third. Gunnar had the big walk-off hit against LSU in the SEC tournament. You may remember that? Big 17-inning game. Then Marshall Gilbert becomes your third baseman. And here's the deal, too. Marshall Gilbert's a catcher. But again, catchers are real people, too. And catchers are tough. And Marshall Gilbert goes out there and learns how to body things up. Anyway, listen, he wasn't an elite third baseman, but that guy was a huge part of why we went to Omaha back in 19. You may recall, too, he had the big walk-off against Auburn in the College World Series. Now, we've had some shuffling to do during the Chris Lemonis era, and that's what good managers do. And so I began to think about, when do we find our stride this year? Because you go back and look, once we put Forsythe in at short, we put Cam at third, and then, stuck with Kellum as a DH, all of a sudden, the offense took off and the defense improved. What if we could do that in March? Or what if we could do it in February? How good could we be? How many games did we lose last year, defensively? And people forget how much we struggled. And when you read Dogpile, you're going to remember a lot of that stuff, because I talked about a lot of the discussion early on was about our poor offensive play, and we got it going later. I'm just looking back. I got the stats actually here in front of me. It's like, and people forget this. We beat Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. We beat them 4-0 on March 10th. We had 4 hits. We come back, later that same week, and we nearly get no hit, and we walk it off against Eastern Michigan. We score 4 runs on 4 hits. We go down there and we beat LSU in game 2. Remember that? We should have swept those clowns. We scored 3 runs on 4 hits. We go to Arkansas. Arkansas comes here and just absolutely embarrasses us. We scored 2 runs on 4 hits. We lose the Ole Miss game with Doug Nikhazy, which is a fantastic outing by him. We get 1 hit. And that was a little bleeder, if I remember it correctly. We go to Vanderbilt that Friday night against Kumar, 2 runs on 3 hits. And, of course, we destroyed Leiter the next day. But, we were very inconsistent at the plate, and that's baseball sometimes. Sometimes you got to be efficient in your output. But the reality of it is there were times last year we were just pretty mediocre offensively. We were able to get the timely hit, but we weren't necessarily a potent offense. Now, I think, honestly, this lineup we have today has the potential to be a little more dangerous 1 through 9. Now, we're going to miss TA and Rowdy like the deserts missed the rain, especially late in ball games. And Chris and I have talked about it before. It was so crazy how TA always seemed to find his way to the plate in the 9th inning. And that's the guy we wanted up there. Our guy against their guy. Who takes that role this year? We talked about that before here on the show. But the reality of it is that, we kind of figured some things out late. We found our identity late, and that's what good managers do. But what's that going to do for us this year? Because we've got so many pieces returning, perhaps we can settle the order and the lineup a little bit earlier. I'm curious to see who's going to be the leadoff hitter. Is it going to be whoever wins the center field job? I mean, would you want to move Cam James at high up in the order? Luke Hancock doesn't have elite speed. I like him as a 2-hole guy. Like him as a 5-hole guy. I think he's a guy that is always going to put the ball in play. You can hit and run with him a little bit. So interesting, to say the least. Those are things that Chris Simonis will figure out. But I like this team, and I begin to think about, R.J. Yeager as an addition as a guy that hit a bunch of home runs. And what's Brad Compass going to do this year now that he can play every day? We forget about that, too, that battle in left field was something that was that really lingered into the postseason. We even tried Kellum Clark out there in the SEC tournament. Maybe you've forgotten that, too. That was some things that weren't – there were a lot of spots last year. We talk about the pitching, how it took us a while to settle the pitching. It took us a while to settle the defense. It took us a while to settle the order. And now Brad Compass has a chance to play every day. Brad played – we played, 68 games last year? Brad played in 49, started 33. So he started less than half of the games. And now all of a sudden he's going to play every day, and he's had the benefit of fall baseball. He also has had the benefit of not having his body beat up by the sport of football. But, Brad's a guy that hit 5 home runs last year in less than half of the games and has half of the at-bats as the normal 9. And he had 5 dingers and 21 ribbies. Then you begin to think about, okay, well, Logan Tanner's back, and Logan had 15 dingers last year. Cameron James had 12. Luke Hancock had 10. Kellum Clark is a guy that we talk about him a lot too. Guys, Kellum Clark started 26 games last year, most of those in a DH role. He appeared in 33 games. People forget he was sick last year a lot. Had a pretty wild situation going on that the staff handled really, really well. Allowed him and his family to deal with it and kind of protect him. And next thing you know, we get him back. And I saw him the other day, and he's put on about 15 pounds, he tells me. You get that big guy playing let's see what he can do playing in 68 games. What is Kellum Clark going to do with 245 at-bats? Look at last year. Look at his numbers. Guys, he had 93 at-bats. 93. 22 hits, 22 runs. That's getting it done, isn't it? That's pretty efficient. Of those 22 hits, 7 doubles, a triple, 5 home runs. So what's he going to do? Now all of a sudden, your corner outfielders, you're like, okay, we've settled these guys, and both of these guys have double-digit home run potential. And then you add R.J. Yeager to the mix as a guy that has some pop too, and so you start thinking, okay, this is a team that ought to be able to hit the long ball. This is a team that ought to be able to get extra base hits. Scotty DeBrule was one of my favorite guys to watch hit, even though I never expected him to hit one out, and he didn't. But nobody could pimp a walk quite like Scotty DeBrule. And he played the head games with pitchers. And those are the nuances of the games that I think a lot of people miss. Scotty was a smarmy smart aleck in the box, and it irritated pitchers. And I had so many of our pitchers tell me last year after he got here that he was just an irritant on the bases, that he was just one of those guys that, it's like, what do you do? He's over there and he's getting his lead, he's kicking dirts around, he's bluffing, it's like he's getting in your head. And so all of that is rather interesting to me, is who takes on that role. But when I begin to think about the power numbers, I think, hey, last year we had 5 guys have double-digit home runs in an era when the home run is still a bit of a novelty. But now all of a sudden you begin to think about, okay, I'm returning 3 of those guys, of the 5. I'm adding a guy, and then 2 of the guys that had 5 home runs are going to play every day now. So if you begin to get these guys healthy, you start thinking, okay, we may be a team that might be a lot more potent offensively. Those are the things that excite me. Now, as a team last year, people forget this. We hit 278 as a team. That's not exactly lighting the woods on fire. Tanner Allen hit 383. Yeah, who's going to be that guy this year? Rowdy hit 323, and outside of that, of your regulars, nobody else hit above 300 until you get down to Brad Cumbest. Even Luke Hancock, as disciplined as he is at the plate, only hit 262. We need him up there around 300 or better. So we'll see how things progress, to say the least. LT's a guy too that he could be a little more selective at times too. But this is a guy that hit 15 bombs last year. Might hit 20 this year, and you say, well, Steve, people are going to pitch around him. Well, when you begin to think about what we just talked about, with all his power in the order, you're going to have the opportunity to protect that guy. You're going to have a chance to protect him, and that's not always the case in the Southeastern Conference. And it's going to be a very offensive league. You've heard Chris Lamona say it. There's so many people that have a lot of veterans back. That's an important part of this thing, too. And really, I think the teams that can pitch it a little bit are going to be in great shape. The teams that can pitch above average are going to win a lot of games. And I don't know that there's not going to be – I don't know if it's going to be the year of the Friday night starter. Last year we had a really good year with Friday night guys around the league. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year. I know that there will be some teams, obviously, but, you begin to look at, Hogland and Nikhazy are gone at Ole Miss, right? That are Arkansas, that rotation was kind of piecemealed together, and they just kind of turned it over to the Cops. And, you had Xavier Hill at LSU last year, and Florida seen Tommy Mason, those guys move along. And so you don't have a lot of those established guys. Christian McLeod, Will Bednar are gone for us, and we feel like we've got a really good guy, Landon Sims. But when you look around the league and you begin to look, okay, it's going to be more offensive, and we may not have those a lot of those future first rounders on Friday night. And I think you're going to see, some church league softball quality scores as we get deeper into these weekends. So if you can pitch it a little bit, and I think we can, then you got a chance to be one of the top teams in this league. And you know what that means? It gives you an opportunity, obviously, to be a top 8 national seed, and that's what we want. That's what we're working towards. We'd love to win the SEC en route to being a top 8 national seed. That's really the bigger issue. Look at some numbers too. Gene does a great job putting these numbers together for us. Just hitting some numbers from Sunday scrimmage. The hitting highlights: Von Siebert 2 for 2 with a double. One of our newcomers coming in. Revy Higgins 1 for 2. Matt Corder was 1 for 2, also had a sac bunt. Tanner Leggett 1 for 3 with that big 3-run jack for the win. Pitching highlights: Jack Walker threw 3 innings, allowed 2 unearned runs on 3 hits, no walks, struck out 2. Brooks Auger 3 innings, no runs, 2 hits, no walks, struck out 4. Brandon Smith, who is a guy that I think can be money for us in that bullpen. I think he's a guy that could probably help us close out some games. We'll see. He's a sinker ball guy. Ground ball machine. Brandon Smith, the 4 innings, allowed no runs on 1 hit, 1 walk to go along with 3 strikeouts. Pitching velocities: Jack Walker topped out 92 miles per hour, Brooks Auger 93, Brandon Smith 91, Bradley Wilson 89. Looking at the hitting stats from yesterday: R.J. Yeager 1 for 3 with an RBI, struck out once. Brad Cumbest 0 for 3 with a couple of Ks. Luke Hancock 1 for 3 and an RBI. Braylon Skinner, Cam James 0 for 2. So it wasn't a huge offensive showing, but we're figuring this thing out. We're figuring this deal out. And some questions too. People wonder about Jackson Fristow. He's expected to pitch today, and it's Foxhall's got some work to do to kind of sort this, to define the roles. And the best way to do that, obviously, is to get the guys on the field, see how they perform in inter-squad, and then see what they do, when the band is playing, when you guys are there. So we'll see. But I'm excited about the season. I'm excited about the book, but the book gets me more excited for the season as well because I remember how special those memories we all made together last year. Speaking of Diamond Dogs, our good friend Brooks Bryan, part of a great group of developers, bringing a wonderful residential development to Starkville. That's Portico. That's right, you've heard about it. You wonder what all the fuss is about. Well, you can find out by going by and checking it out yourself. You turn off 82 on a 12, take the very first right, which is Pat Station Road. That'll take you to the little four-way stop there. They recently fixed that bridge there going to town, which is really nice and neat. And you can go and check out Portico. A great place to live. A great place to maybe make it your second home, too. You know, maybe you're thinking, hey, we want to go ahead and build a place there. We're going to retire there when we're done. Then Portico is a good place for you, too. You can have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home up to a 4-bedroom, 4-bath home. You'd be glad you did. Very conveniently located on the quiet side of campus, just 1.1 miles away from the Mississippi State campus. That's a cool, cool thing. Right there by that neighborhood market at Walmart. Makes it real convenient. So if you forget something on the way home, you don't have to run all the way across town to go get that missing ingredient. Pretty cool. The great walking trail is out there. Phase 1 is now completely sold out. We knew that it would be. We knew it wouldn't take long. Phase 2, under construction now. And here's the deal. You can reach out now, and you can pick out your house plans. You can pick out your lot. You can have some say in what all that's going to be about. It's a really cool thing to have some say in what your home's going to look like. But here's the deal. To get the whole process started, to get more information, and to kind of feel good about the direction of things, reach out to our friend Brooks Bryan. He once robbed a home run against the University of Washington to send us to Omaha. So you at least owe him a phone call, right? 601-416-8075. Again, that's 601-416-8075. So if I was moving to Starkville now, I would move to Portico just because of the convenience to campus. I mean, I'm on campus a lot, and I'm out here in the sticks, and I love it, but I'd love to be a little bit closer, save a little gas money too. It'd be great for you. So if this is like a ball game retreat for you, a secondary home, then that's perfect for you. Again, it's time. Let's make Portico your next move. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some recruiting stuff here. You know, we didn't do the signing day spectacular, you know, with the marching band, dancing girls, all that kind of stuff, because Mississippi State didn't add anybody in February. You say, oh, well, Steve, we did, though. But no, we didn't, because we had a couple of guys who were already signed that we just announced those guys. And State now dips to 27th after basically being in the top 25 most of the process. 27th in the rankings, which is pretty much where we have been. That was always the discussion when Mike Leach came. Is, oh, you know, they're not going to recruit as well. You know, this is pretty much our average, you know, between 25, 27. And we're right there. And, of course, we're still learning how to evaluate transfers and how to weight those rankings. But, yeah, we're recruiting pretty well. Not great, but we're recruiting pretty well. We need to do a better job keeping some of these great in-state players in-state. I thought we had a pretty good year on the in-state side of things. And you guys are well aware, too. Obviously, we've got a lot of players on campus right now, all of your transfers. And then you know, your 5 early enrollees, Jacarius Clayton, Braden Locke, Percy Lewis, Carlos Nicholson, and Janoris Hobson. And so now all that's left is some room for a couple transfers. And we'll see how that progresses too. Don't be the least bit surprised if you see another guy or two leave the program. Probably need that room in order to make that happen. And I want to give you a quick rundown too. We talk about in-state recruiting, and that is a big part of what things are about at Mississippi State. We have to do well in-state. You know, and that's the thing, you know, State of Washington didn't produce a ton of Power 5 talent, but they produced a lot, and they all went to Washington. I mean, and let's be honest, too. They're going to Seattle. Seattle over Pullman, Washington, that's going to win most times. And so you didn't have a lot to pull from there. It's a little different because State and Ole Miss are still very similar in many respects. When it comes to location and amenities and things like that, despite what some other people would want to say, they're both just college towns. One has a championship, one doesn't. So let's look at the 2022 top football recruits in Mississippi and kind of see how we did. Branson Robinson, of course, signed with Georgia. And here's people say, well, Steve, we couldn't get him to stay home. And I don't think that was ever a possibility. Once his recruitment exploded, he talked very favorably about Mississippi State in the early stages of his recruitment, And then once everybody in the country got involved on him, he went to Georgia, and I think it's a good spot for him. I wish him the best. I don't know that our offense is a great fit for what he wants to do, if that makes sense. I think he wants to carry the football 20, 25 times a game. He'll do that at Georgia. He wouldn't do that here. Jaheim Otis, that's one that, obviously from my hometown, you'd like to get him. Alabama got on him early and giving Nick Saban and those guys a lot of credit. They got him committed early and were able to hang on to him after a pretty furious push by Mississippi State and Ole Miss late in the process. And, a lot of people worried about him going to Ole Miss. I never really worried about him going to Ole Miss. I was hoping he'd come to Mississippi State, but it didn't work out that way. I wish him the best, though. Known that family a long time, and I think in the end that him sticking with Alabama is what he wanted to do. I think there's some people around him that wanted him to do some other things, but I think he wanted to go to Alabama, and that's the better part of it. With Mississippi State's defensive lineman in the league, we'd have a better chance to get that guy. Well, again, Kamari Rogers, and I've said before, I feel like he's a little bit overvalued at number 3. He sticks at Miami. His size worries me, and the fact that he's had some knee surgeries. A fantastic kid from a fantastic family. You wish him the best. But this is one, too, that I don't think it was a deal breaker for us either way. I would have liked to have had him. But there's some risk-reward with all that. Xavien Harris is a guy I like a lot, too, but I like him as an offensive lineman. 6'8", 335 pounds. Those guys generally don't play defense. I do think he has the footwork to be a tackle. Probably a right tackle. Could be a left tackle under the right circumstance, but I won't be the least bit surprised if he goes to Ole Miss and flips over to play on the offensive line. Highest rated in-state recruit from Mississippi State, Trevion Williams. You guys are quite familiar with him. That was a very highly contested battle. He offered his in-home commitment, his silent commitment the weekend of the Kentucky game, for those who didn't know. Number 6 on the list, Marquez Dorche, also a Mississippi State signee. A lot of discussion about Ole Miss playing him at corner and us playing him at receiver. He's here, and at this point, I don't care what they say. I don't care how they feel. I don't care what their plans were for him. This guy's an electric player with the football in his hands, and I think he's a great fit for the air raid, and I think Mike Leach and Steve Spurrier will know exactly how to use him. Stone Blanton, number 7, goes to South Carolina. A disappointment for a lot of Mississippi State people because, of course, Stone grew up a Bulldog. But in the end, he elects to go there. And, of course, some people would say, I think he just wanted to get away from the rivalry. Maybe he did, but I wish him the best. I honestly think that I think his pro future might actually be in baseball. And that may be a little bit off the spot, but, I think Stone Blanton is a guy that, like, if he truly committed himself to one sport, could play professional sports. I think his better options are in baseball, but he's a guy, too, when healthy, has been very, very productive at linebacker position. Jeremiah Dillon from Tylertown is number 8. I think he is very overvalued as a prospect. I think that he is probably a top 20 guy. I don't think he's a top 10 guy. And really the same for Jordan Anthony. Both of these guys, both from Tylertown. He signed on with Kentucky. But this guy is elite speed-wise. And when you look at what Kentucky has done with their slot receivers, they'll know how to utilize him. And I think there are going to be some people that come back and say, Steve, how in the world did we not take Jordan Anthony? Give Stoops and those guys some credit. But, we were looking for some size this year at wide receiver, and there were some other guys on the inside that we liked a little bit better. Jacarius Clayton comes in at number 10. We like him an awful lot. He's already on campus, and he's a guy that could be an OLDL, but will start out on the D-line, probably stays there. I think that's where his heart is. Bryson Hurst, number 11. In many respects, I feel like he is the top offensive line prospect in the state, but I think he's a guard. And if I had to pick between him and Xavien Harris, I would pick Xavien Harris. I think that makes better sense to me. But I do think Bryson Hurst, when fully engaged, is a very, very talented football player. Got to get in shape, but I think that he's a guy that I think we'll look back in a couple of years and think, I wish we would have got that kid. Aaron Bryant never really gave Mississippi State a solid look. Aaron Bryant from South Haven, now headed to the University of Texas. Ole Miss people really thought they had him, and in the early going, when Ole Miss offered, there was talk about that being the dream school. Just didn't work out the way they had intended. We look at our next player on list, number 13, is Khalid Moore, who I think is undervalued at 13, and that is absolutely fine. I think we're going to come back and gloat here in a couple of years when Khalid Moore is a guy that is contending for a potential all-SEC spot. later as a veteran in his career. I think he is a guy that can be an explosive player for us, and not just in this scheme, but in any scheme, just a football player. 14 is Dante Russell, also a Mississippi State signee. This is a guy, too, that, kind of a legacy of sorts in many respects, a younger brother of DeMonte Russell, but also a guy that I think his better days are ahead of him. He'll get a guy in a college weight room. I think he's going to explode. And State really got him without much fanfare. Larry Simmons is 15. I think that's too low. And yes, he's going to Ole Miss, but I think Larry Simmons is a special player. I would have him top 10. I think the guy, when you look at the guy, what he does after the catch is pretty special. And he's headed to Ole Miss. So you look at this and say, hey, we did pretty well at the receiver position, but, Ole Miss did a really good job in-state recruiting at wide receiver. And Ole Miss didn't sign many kids on in-state, but I like the guys they got. R.J. Moss, former Mississippi State commitment, signed with South Alabama. Wish him the absolute best. I know a lot of people around him know him. The bottom line is when they don't sign in December, whether it be our decision or theirs, there's always some antennas that go up, and that will continue to happen. Jatarius Elam is ranked 17. I like him at that spot. He didn't sign with anybody, likely headed to junior college. Dakota Jordan, Mississippi State, two-sport star, will wait out the draft and then make a decision about signing either before or after fall camp after he knows the rest. Blake Gunner, number 19, I think he's a little bit overvalued, but this is probably about right. I would probably have him 23, 24. Tight end out of Madison Central, signed with Tulane. Really like his film. He's kind of sneaky good. It's like you didn't hear much about him because State and Ole Miss didn't really push him. State doesn't use tight ends, and Ole Miss had other options at that point. But I really thought he would end up at Ole Miss in the early going. He ends up at Tulane. I think he can have a good career there. I think they'll know how to use him. But if you go watch his film, you're kind of like, well, hey, this kid can play a little bit. Number 20, this will be the final guy we talk about, is Trent Singleton. I think Trent Singleton is undervalued at 20, but it's about right. I mean, maybe I have him 18, 19, maybe up a little bit. I think Trent Singleton is a guy that's going to be the leader of this program one day. And what I mean by that is I think he'll be the guy that comes out and speaks to the media because he's a guy that's very articulate and extremely intelligent. And a guy can also play a really good brand of football. So when you run down the numbers here and you begin to think about, okay, you look at the top 20 in Mississippi, I can kind of count it down for you. I guess we can always go back to 25. Let's go to 25. I won't run the names down for you, but 25 State gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of the top 25. Is that enough? I don't know. This year, considering some of the headliners we had in the class, maybe it's not. Maybe you got to get a couple more guys. And I think, getting Trevion Williams was huge, but how big would it have been to have Trevion and Jaheim Otis? That would have been incredible. And I think we got to go out there and win a few more football games to make that a more likely possibility. All right, that's going to do it for today. If you're looking for books, as always, go to dogpilotbook.com, and you can get everything there except for Bloomsville Leander. That's available through Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, Books A Million. It's also an ebook, too. It's the only one of my books that's an ebook. So have it downloaded right to your device, and you can read that. Pretty proud of that one, too. Not a sports book. Pretty proud. That one made it as high as number 5 on the Mississippi bestsellers list, and I appreciate everybody that carried that book. And contrary to popular belief, it is the only book that I've self-published, which I think is it was a little project between me and my sister Reagan, and I was happy to do that. And it was a lot of fun, and I'll probably do it again at some point. If you're looking for Stark Villains gear, go to starkvillains.com. You should be. You can get hoodies and T-shirts there in a variety of styles. Be sure and go check those guys out today, starkvillains.com. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll get ready for Tennessee. And we'll be a couple days closer to college baseball season. Really excited about that. Still don't have start times for the weekend games. A lot of people are asking about that. I know Lamonis likes the afternoon start because it gives you flexibility if there's any weather. And so I suspect the Friday game will be an afternoon start. And I guess if you plan for an afternoon start and it moves to the evening, it's still okay. But I won't be the least bit surprised if we find out that's a 3 p.m. First pitch. I know people will complain, we can't get there. And I get it. I understand that. It's opening day, though. Maybe you need to take a sick day or take a vacation day and come up here and spend the day in Starkville and be part of all this. But we'll see. I will be surprised, though, if it's not an afternoon start. I'm good either way. I live here, and you should too. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we'll make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.